NecroMonica is a horror comic from Miles Erickson, aka MyGumsAreBleeding Comics, that came out of nowhere. Well, only if you weren't paying attention. On the one hand, you've got the derpy faces that Gums is known for, and on the other, you have these unholy abominations clawing their ways up from the depths of hell. If you're a casual reader of these online comics, you might take one look at NecroMonica and go, where the hell did this webcomic come from? And why are there already scripts for a NecroMonica television series? Well, what better place to find out than straight from the source? I interviewed Miles Erickson, indie comic artist behind MyGumsAreBleeding Comics and more recently the NecroMonica series. While his usual comics follow a more fun, lighthearted non sequitur pattern, NecroMonica takes a stab at much darker humor with recurring characters, namely the titular Monica, who possesses a connection to the rather terrifying afterlife, pulling deceased grandparents and United States presidents from their eternal torment into, well, just different torment, honestly. And today, I'm gonna take you through the equal parts horrifying and hilarious adventures of Monica, how the series developed, and what we can expect in the future. If you like this kind of thing, I always appreciate if you like the video and or subscribe to the channel. You might think this came out of left field, but Erickson definitely always had a simmering interest in the macabre.
My application to art school was a comic, and it was a horror comic. That was probably like the earliest comic I've done in like my adult life. I always tend to have more fun drawing horror stuff because you have a little more like freedom when you're drawing, monsters and demons than when it's just like two guys talking.
So I've just been informed it's actually Erickson with a CK. Probably not that bad. I might have misspelled it once or twice. Let me just go check. Yeah, that's the whole video. Let me just, there. That's fine. That's fine. The seeds of what would turn into NecroMonica were there from the moment he started posting online. But seriously, scroll all the way back to his second comic ever on Reddit, and you'll find a post to r/I'mSorryJohn, the subreddit devoted to those Eldritch Garfield memes, about Jerry Seinfeld reading the Necronomicon and corrupting George Costanza. Erickson has been biding his time, waiting for the day to bring something like NecroMonica to light. It might have caught most people off guard, but look through his work and you'll see that this was inevitable. And the next step? He wants to bring NecroMonica to a full-blown TV series. Early in 2024, on February 7th, he dropped the first NecroMonica comic. Monica reads a book of forbidden spells. Normally, she summons demons. Today, she summons all of her energy just to get through this fucking chapter. The window bursts open. A strong gust of wind carries an envelope inside, floating across the room.
Oh shit. My first magic letter. Maybe it's an invitation to a wizard school, or a map to a powerful relic.
She tears open the envelope, inconsiderate of the fact that some magic intern spent like 3 days on that calligraphy.
Oh, it's a dick pic. Oh my god, it's one of those moving Harry Potter dick pics.
Honestly, it's a perfect introduction to the character and her world. The second comic followed another character, a guy being haunted by a ghost outside of a Burger King, which supernatural hauntings and fast food restaurants wouldn't just become an important point in the upcoming comics, but it's something ingrained in its DNA, going as far back as older projects Erickson repurposed into NecroMonica. But let's rewind.
It's rewind time.
Nothing exists in a vacuum, and his comics, style, and love of horror developed over years, not overnight. Though, if you want to skip past all the development and behind-the-scenes stuff, I've got a timestamp for you on screen here. NecroMonica keeps his usual style, the distant and vacant eyes on rotoscoped cartoon characters sporting very loud but minimalist colors.
I do it in a very like traditional sense where I will have poses done and then I'll just kind of do like vague outlines over the poses. The faces are purposefully very minimalist, so I think it's important that the body language is very on point. I mean, a lot of the times in my comics, I've gotten very good at drawing hands because the hands have to do a lot of communicating.
And this style has been developing as far back as grade school, where he was drawing every second he could find.
I used to draw comics in like second and third grade pretty consistently, where I would come up with like characters and draw little like comics about them. I drew a lot in school because I don't know, I'm terrible at paying attention to anything long term. Even during movies, I'll doodle. So I think it's just been something that I've been doing like consistently my entire life at this point. I used to do a comic about a shrimp when I was in like second grade. That's the most I can like context I can remember for any like actual drawing though. I don't know how I got any long-term content out of a shrimp, but I do remember drawing it like consistently when I was like second or third grade.
He would begin attending the California School of Arts in 2016, which is where he started the development of two massive comic projects, Aluminum Frontier and Ventropolis, the latter of which would actually serve as the earliest origins of NecroMonica.
So Aluminum Frontier was my college final project, and it was 100 pages long. It was my first year end of the year project. It was my 2-year end of the year project, so like half my time in college. And then it was my final project, all in one. So I was showing it as I was making it. And it took 4 years to make. I drew over 400 pages for it, 300 of which didn't get used. It also, when anybody asks me any advice on how to make comics, it informs almost every piece of advice I give people for what not to do when they make a comic. And then I was working on that other one sort of at the end during COVID at art school, Ventropolis. And it basically, it's what eventually turned into NecroMonica. I used a lot of the DNA from what that was going to be and turned it into NecroMonica.
Ventropolis was never fully completed, but the pages and images that were posted as part of its coming soon promotion definitely echo NecroMonica. The eerie modern settings like fast food restaurants that feel the slightest bit off, pitting normal people against the eldritch unknown, you can definitely see how it evolved into NecroMonica. And there's that thing I mentioned earlier about the odd connection between the eerie supernatural and fast food locations. However, Ventropolis wasn't his big project. That award goes to Aluminum Frontier. Erickson put himself so fully into it, so much time and effort, he was sure this was going to be his big break.
After college, I tried to get it published, but no publishers were really into it. I was using every tenuous connection I could make. I ended up getting it in front of Neil Gaiman read it and gave me some advice on it, and some people from HBO, because I was just so desperate to get anybody to actually look at it after spending all that time on it. But yeah, in the end I couldn't get it published.
Whoa, hold on. Did he say Neil Gaiman and HBO? Yeah, he wasn't just at school for comics. He had his eyes set on showbiz.
That's showbiz!
Yeah, I went there for fine arts. I got my degree in fine arts, but I would say that 90% of the classes that I took to get that degree were writing and film. But a lot of the reason I went there was because I had assumed that because of the way their programs were set up, that I could go as an art student and then take classes more in the realm of what I actually wanted to do, which were film and writing.
After college, though, he was just spinning his wheels. This was during the 2020 lockdowns, and he was left as a new graduate with a comic that no one wanted. But bills and groceries wait for no one, so he started the next phase of his life. Odd jobs. Though they were much more impressive odd jobs compared to most people.
I had a lot of very oddball writing and art jobs right out of college, which I think is probably a pretty common experience. I got hired to work on a children's novel that I'm not even sure if it ever got published. I did the art for it. And then I went and I worked for Disney. I worked at a company called Wild Canary that did animation for Disney Channel shows. So I worked on a Little Mermaid show for Disney Junior for a while there. Oh, and I was columnist and worked my way up to assistant editor at a local newspaper, which is probably the first place I ever got any of my comics published. It was just an LA paper. I worked at a YouTube channel called Pencilmation with some other well-known comic creators. I worked there with Neil Coney for a while. He was my co-writer. I was there for about a year and a half.
Long story short, Erickson has had a long career that's taken him all over the place. While he was bouncing around Hollywood like a pinball, he found success with his gaming comics on r/gaming. By the end of 2021, his more familiar comic style showed its face. though he did have his witchy inclinations along the way. Fast forwarding a couple of years, and My Gums Are Bleeding has become a massive player in the world of online comics. He was big before he was even ready.
So prior to My Gums Are Bleeding being my Instagram where I posted my comics, it was just like my private Instagram account that I had, like my personal account that I'd had since like 8th grade. And when I started posting my comics on Reddit, I was kind of just doing it like for fun. I didn't expect them to get so popular as quickly as they did. And I was suddenly getting a lot of comments from people asking where they could see more of my stuff. And I, at the time, had no real like database with all of my comics on it. So I just started sending them to my Instagram account, which at the time was still private and was like 90% photos of like me and my friends. I think there was maybe like 3 art pieces on it at the time. As for the name, you would have to ask myself from like, freshman year of high school.
In about 2 months, most of his Instagram followers were there for his comics. This comic from May 2022 really kicked things off for him, and is what he considers his first really viral moment. Of course, this would attract the attention of publishers with deals and offers. All the while, the essence of Ventropolis would eventually be worked into NecroMonica in Erickson's mind.
I don't know, the NecroMonica I first pitched because I had a number of publishers approach me to make compilations of my comics on Instagram in the past, and I had always turned them down just because I didn't really think a book would sell that well. And then it sort of was just serendipitous. I got into touch with this publisher. They had a branch where they were publishing more like traditional novels, and they had a comic branch and a TV branch. So when we had agreed to do the book, they'd also said like, hey, if you have any pitches in the barrel, like we'd love to hear them. They gave me like a general outline of shows that they were looking to make. So I wrote like 5 pitches for shows that kind of fit the general theme that they were going for. But then I was also like, hey, while I'm pitching you these, I've also got this one that I've been cooking on for a while called NecroMonica. And I pitched it for about 5 minutes, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we love that. Like that sounds really great. Like that sounds like something we could turn into like some IP and do like shows and games or whatever." So I was like, "Awesome," and they agreed to buy it.
So the end, right? It was a successful pitch. After a long time of turning down offers for comic compilations, Pan-Universal Galactic Worldwide, Cryptozoic, and Diamond Comics were ready to run with NecroMonica. Everything worked out perfectly. Nothing ever works out that easily. It's no secret that companies have mountains of intellectual properties, but only tend to pay attention to a few of their most lucrative, with a couple of experimental projects here and there for smaller IP.
It's my IP to sit on and do nothing with.
They're more likely to gravitate towards something that's already established. So even though he was told NecroMonica projects were moving forward, they weren't. So if they weren't going to do anything with NecroMonica,
I'll do it myself.
It's the way the business goes, where after a few months, there was no movement on the project, and they were basically like, sorry, we don't really have the bandwidth to continue this right now. And I was like, okay, that's valid. That was when I published the comic online. I took the first 10 pages from the pilot episode, which I'd been working on, and made it into the comic that then did very well on Reddit. I think the first image that I drew for that comic was in like November. It definitely took a while, and the next day I woke up and I had all these offers. So it basically reinvigorated negotiations for a series, and a series is happening. At the very least, we're doing a series of floppies with Diamond Comics. And I think part of it was because the publisher read through the comments on the Reddit and were like, oh, there actually is interest in this as a series or as a show. So no, yeah, I very much appreciate, Reddit helping me make that a sort of like pseudo grassroots movement, because the likes spoke for it very well, but I'm not sure if it would have happened without everybody talking about how much they would have liked a series. I was just extremely thrilled to have validation that this is something my audience would be into, If my audience is cool getting like a split between NecroMonica content and My Gums Are Bleeding content, then I'm more than happy. to do that. I personally have a lot more fun drawing NecroMonica stuff.
This one Reddit post literally saved NecroMonica. It's ironic that the series about a necromancer had to be brought back from the dead. What was originally a successful TV and comic series pitch that was later shelved came roaring back on R Comics and quickly became the second highest upvoted comic in the history of the sub, surpassing comics from Pizza Cake, Last Place Comics, and Jenny Jinya.
I had written the script a while ago, and actually drawing it out, I kept drawing like 1 or 2 images for it, and then I would kind of step away and I would come back. Maybe like a few weeks before I actually posted it, I was like, okay, I'm actually going to sit down and finish this because it's been bugging me for too long. I would have been happy if it got like 500 likes on Reddit. I really did not expect it to do anywhere near the numbers of my usual content. I was mostly just doing it for me because it was the kind of stuff that I wanted to make. I was extremely surprised when it did so well.
So what was this comic that left everyone begging for more? It opens on a lonely McDonald's at night, where Monica stops mid-order to ask the employee, Bobby, what's wrong. He stops long enough to tell her that his grandma died recently. But hey, Monica's a necromancer, she can just bring her back. Yay? So with a burst of green light glowing from her hands and a garbled incantation, the ground splits open and the tortured soul of Bobby's grandmother claws her way up from the depths of hell. Which is its own issue, but if she wasn't in the land of the damned, Monica wouldn't be able to contact her. The situation goes from bad to worse when Grandma pleads with Bobby about the horrors of the afterlife. I wouldn't quite call this a touching reunion, but Monica could bring her back permanently. The catch is that she'd be bound to Bobby forever. Like, forever. He couldn't let her out of his sight. It sounds like an entry on our shitty superpowers. You can revive anyone from the dead, but they're bound to you for all eternity. And Bobby... well... Monica undoes her curse, the crevice in the ground shrinking with hands dragging Bobby's grandma back into the fiery depths as she begs Bobby to take her hand. After that, Bobby starts to explain his decision, only for his manager to step in to scold Monica. She can't just be opening portals to hell or summoning tortured souls. This isn't a Waffle House. And the insanity of Monica's life didn't just start there. The next comic offered a look into Monica's past. During a sleepover at a friend's house, Monica and her friends Morgan and Haley decide to try summoning a demon. Well, mainly Morgan. Monica is, quote, more in the eating disorder stage of her teenage years. And the ritual goes... well, it goes a little too well. A demon arises and begins slaughtering those who summoned him, leaving Monica as the only survivor. And, quick side note, the demon's design was helped along by user Stabby Claws, aka Victor Gnarly. More and more NecroMonica comics would follow. Monica would go to hell in one, in another she summoned Andrew Jackson as part of her history report for school. Even though the first comic took Erickson around months and months to complete, these next ones dropped in less than a month from each other. Now that he knew he had a winner on his hands, he could finally dig into that massive amount of scripts and storylines he had built up from pitching it as a TV show.
They went from not having enough bandwidth to do the project to calling me within like a month before a deal was even finalized. I already have scripts written for the first 5 episodes of a TV series, which 1 episode of the TV series translates to about 3 floppies, and an outline for a full season. So I have enough content to make it as long as there is an audience for it. I'm working towards doing this full-time because I'd very much like to work on this project full-time.
If you saw my interview with Sarah Scribbles, you'll know it's not an uncommon problem among internet artists to be pigeonholed into doing the comics they always have, sticking to the one thing everyone subscribed to them for. But at the end of the day, everyone I've talked to, everyone in the webcomics community are creatives. And we need to be able to flex our creative muscles.
For basically the entire time I've been a writer, I've been working on projects where there was some kind of outline for the work that needed to be done. There was I would get hired onto a show or a project, and they would say, the project is about this, these are the characters, make something within that. Or a script would already be written, and they would say, find humor within the structure that is already available. Whereas with NecroMonica, I'd get to do whatever I want, and I think that's sort of like the dream as a writer.
This video is releasing in the early days of NecroMonica. Erikson has so many plans and projects in the works because, well, he's seen LA, and he knows how much work goes into pushing your ideas to the finish line, even if it means bringing them back from the dead. If you enjoy this kind of content, why not like and subscribe? I've got a Ko-fi and Patreon, I'm slowly getting up to speed, or you could check out any of my other artist interviews or videos. I've got plenty more on the way.
Here's this. For NecroMonica, please continue looking at my Instagram and Reddit. There is more content coming imminently. Also, if you like my content in general, My Gums Are Bleeding Volume 1, the collection, comes out at the beginning of 2025 in January. There will be a Kickstarter prior to the release, so go donate money, and if you follow me on Instagram, I promise you will be inundated with content about it. Oh, and the book also comes with the first floppy issue of NecroMonica.
Thanks for watching. I've got to get to work on that After Death Comics video now.